Hi everyone, you're welcome to today's video. And so today we'll be talking about a really interesting issue that unfolded just a few days ago, and it's actually about the strike action embarked upon by PENGASSAN. PENGASSAN is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. It's actually a union, a labor union that caters for the interest of its members who happen to be people in the oil and gas sector. So we know recently Bengasin has been pushing for the unionization of staff of the Dangote refinery. We know that Dangote refinery is the biggest refinery in Africa and is actually owned by the Dangote Group, which is spearheaded by Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man. Of course, we know that Dangote has a conglomerate of companies that operate in various sectors of the economy. And recently, the Dangote refinery has been in the news, especially with regards to the running battle it has been having with PENGASSAN. So PENGASSAN has been pushing for um, staff of Dangote refinery to become its members because it feels that every Nigerian worker, whether you are in the private or public sector, deserves the right to belong to a union if they choose to. So working in the private sector doesn't stop you or doesn't take away your right from belonging to any union that you feel would protect your interests as a worker, as a professional. And there's been this running battle, and then along the line, about 800 members or thereabouts, members of the Dangote refinery joined PENGASSAN, became members of PENGASSAN. So Dangote refinery raised the hammer by sacking those 800 of its workers that became members of PENGASSAN. And of course, when this action took place, Dangote's official statement did not say that these people were sacked because they became members of PENGASSAN, but rather the statement read that those staff members were taking part in activities that the company regarded as sabotage. So they were sabotaging the activities or the efforts or the business of Dangote refinery. So that was the reason they gave for laying off 800 of its workers. And so Pengassin did not take this lying low. They swung into action, and then they accused Dangote refinery of sacking those people because they became members of Pengassin. And then they argued, as they've always done, that they had the right to join any union they wanted, that because they worked in the private sector, they shouldn't stop them from becoming members of Pengassin if they wanted to. And so at the end of the day, after all said and done, Pengassin threatened to embark on a strike. And the period of warning they gave elapsed, and Dangote did not budge, so they went ahead and commenced a strike action. And part of this strike action was that they asked their members to down tool, and this usually when they go on such strikes, it affects the supply chain network of petroleum products around the country. In addition to asking their members to down tools, they also asked that their members disconnect supply of gas and crude oil to the Dangote refinery. Of course, this is something that would hamper the operations of Dangote refinery to a very huge extent. So this strike action commenced, and then the war of words between the two organizations, between Pengassin and Dangote refinery, continued for about 3 days or thereabouts. Eventually, the strike continued, and Dangote, they were negotiating, and the negotiations were not yielding results, not until the federal government, a team from the federal government intervened, and eventually they reached what you could describe as a compromise. So during the course of this crisis, part of the offers that Dangote gave was that they were going to pay these 800 workers that were laid off. They were not going to absorb them back. They would remain sacked, but they were going to pay them for 5 years without working. So they were going to pay them monthly for about 5 years as a kind of compensation for the dismissal. But Pengassin did not buy that offer. They said the offer was not, feasible, that there was no guarantee that these guys along the line were not going to be sacked with some other excuses, and there was no guarantee that the company was going to keep paying them for for 5 years when they were not doing any work. And so the argument continued, and eventually the federal government had to intervene, just to rescue the situation and avoid a situation where you'd have a crisis of supply of petroleum products around the country, which could probably lead to long queues, like we used to have, in the past, of petroleum scarcity and all that. So I don't know what you think. Do you think that Dangote refinery has the right to stop its workers from joining a union of their choice, or do you think that PENGASSAN was right in claiming that every Nigerian worker has a right to join a union that they wanted to, whether they worked in the private or the public sector? So that was the bone of contention between the two organizations, which led to a strike, which was eventually, called off at the end of the day. But you may want to ask, when the strike was called off, what were the terms of the agreement? What promises were made? So after the intervention of the, federal government, the team from the federal government, it was agreed that those 800 workers that were sacked were going to be, taken back into Dangote refinery, but they were going to be placed in other, in other departments, in other units in Dangote group as a whole, not necessarily the refinery. Okay, so they were going to be taken back, and then another conclusion that was reached was that these guys had the right to join a union if they wanted to. So the strike action has been called off for now, and PENGASSAN has categorically stated that they are ready to go back on strike if Dangote goes back on any of the conditions that has been met. So we're watching to see how this is going to play out, whether Dangote is really going to keep these guys that were sacked, that have been taken back now, or along the line there might be some other excuses with which the organizations may decide to lay them off or terminate their appointments and all that. And then there's also the argument still continues on whether they have the right to join unions, or whether PENGASSAN should have the right to limit the activities to workers in government establishments. So tell us what you think in how this whole drama played out. What do you think? Do you stand on the side of Dangote? Along the line, people are also arguing that PENGASSAN under the leadership of Festus Osifo was trying to sabotage the activities of Dangote refinery, which many see as a company that is successfully providing a service that the Nigerian government has failed to provide over the years. We have different government refineries in different parts of the country which has refused to work for several years, despite the huge investments in terms of turnaround maintenance, in terms of replacing of equipment, in terms of trying to get those facilities to work. Millions, if not billions of dollars has been spent to get these refineries back to work, but these monies have not been properly accounted for, and these government refineries have refused to work. But here you have a private individual, a private company, a Dangote refinery, is successfully carrying out the activities of refining petroleum products and trying as much as it can to ensure that there's adequate supply of petroleum products around the country. So some people feel that PENGASSAN does not have any right to interfere in the activities of Dangote refinery, and people also, some sections of the public has accused PENGASSAN of sabotaging the efforts of the petroleum sector. That PENGASSAN is actually part of the problem of the petroleum sector with their incessant strikes, their demands, and their difficult positions in terms of activities in the petroleum sector. So such people feel that PENGASSAN should limit the activities to all workers in the public sector, because that is where they've always been engaging from. And so they don't have the right to bring the activities into Dangote refinery, a company that appears to be solving the problem of supply and availability of petroleum products in Nigeria. So what do you think? Do you think PENGASSAN is trying to sabotage Dangote for certain interests? Some people have even argued that it is those in those cabals in the oil sector who don't want, Dangote refinery to succeed, that is pushing or using, Pengassan as a channel, or as fronting Pengassan to disrupt the activities of Dangote, so that at the end of the day, you would have a situation where those oil marketers or the so-called cabals will still have their way in the oil sector. Because from the look of things, the success of the Dangote refinery is actually, gradually putting to death the illegal activities of oil marketers, importers, and the rest. So what do you think? Do you think that going forward, the activities of Pengassan with regards to Dangote refinery will sabotage the company's efforts and the company's success story that they've recorded so far? Do you think that it is those people who feel aggrieved because Dangote is succeeding in the oil sector that is pushing Pengassan to try to sabotage Dangote? Or do you feel that the argument that Pengassan is putting forth is valid in terms of saying that every Nigerian worker has a right to join any union that they feel? Do you feel that Pengassan is acting in the best interest of those staff or those workers in the Dangote refinery? I'd like to have your opinion, and let us know what you think in the comment section. Thank you for watching today's video. I'd like you to like this video, share and subscribe, and watch out for the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.